Until I was 14, when my mother, my father, my sister, and I slept in a small flat, and everyone was asleep, I always had the idea that one day it would be so dark all over the world. Everything dies. Everyone dies. I will die too, and I will be one with the darkness. But I will preserve something out of the light. I don't know how, but I'll keep it, and then I'll restart it.
Mihalis Patsioras was born in 1946 in Greece, in a village called Paliori. He was 4 years old when he moved to Hungary with his family. Until the age of 40, he worked as a building engineer. Later, he ran a herbal shop in Budapest. He was married, had children, but could not find his place in the world. At the age of 53, he retired to a house in the Burzsiny Hills, where there is no TV, radio, telephone, or internet.
In winter, when I look out the window and there's the snowy landscape, I couldn't bear to look at it in a short-sleeved t-shirt. In my house in winter, the temperature is set to 12.5 degrees. So yes, to me, in winter, just as nature dies a little, it gets cold. I have to die a little. I have to get cold as well, and then we will revive in the spring. So we have to live with nature. So that was in me without formulating it for myself. Somehow, this is how I started living here in Kamense.
Mihalis wakes up at 4 o'clock. He makes tea from the water of a nearby spring and the herbs he collects in the Burzsiny Hills.
I come down at 4 in the morning. The pot is already here. This is a 69-year-old pot. It was bought by my mother in 1950. She baked and cooked in it for years. It has remained with me somehow. These are all collected by me here in Burzsiny Hills. I collect about 30 or 35 types of herbs. These contain everything that a human body needs. All the vitamins. I don't need to eat anything else. But still, no one can live on just water. I eat dry bread to fill my stomach a bit. I eat it or dip it. Do you know what a delicious thing it is to dip dry bread into hot tea? Try it. It doesn't mean I eat only this. I eat many kinds of food. But when I don't feel like cooking, then I have this as warm food.
Mihalis consumes food only once a day and just one bowl. He mainly eats what he gets from nature. He produces most of the food he needs in his garden. As he says, he grows struggling tomatoes and peppers.
I am a very, very, very happy person. I was conceived surrounded with great pleasure. I was born on the 10th of February 1946. If we count back 9 months, it means the end of World War II. The 9th of May 1945 was the first day of peace. My mother's throes of childbirth came. She went out to the backyard to the toilet. She couldn't go back. In a village house in Greece, the ground floor was for the animals, and people lived on the first floor. She couldn't go upstairs and stopped at the entrance of the house. She had one foot in the barn and the other in the yard. She gave birth to me on the doorstep at midnight on Sunday. Crossing thresholds has accompanied me throughout my life. I was 1 year old. It was winter, February, big snow. There was a civil war in Greece. One of our enemies came into our village looking for his enemy. He was told that there was this woman, the wife of that communist. He took me out of my mother's lap and threw me into the snow. My mother was taken away. This was my first breakup. Luckily, there was somebody who took care of me until my mother came home. My second breakup was in 1948, when my mother left me in Bulgaria and went back to fight, as many women did at the time. From 1939, there were wars in Greece. It was 1948. There were hardly any men, so women also went to fight. She left me in Bulgaria. That was my second breakup. In Bulgaria, in the children's home, I remember, and my mother and several kindergarten teachers also said this. They said as well that since that child arrived here, he's been sitting in that corner, staring at the world from there. But it wasn't bad for me, it was good, but everyone felt sorry for me. This kid doesn't do anything but sit there. Those 2 years were very important in my life. My mother returned after 2 years. There was the next breakup. There were many of us in Bulgaria, so we were scattered to the socialist countries because we were communists. We were put on a train. Whatever, the last wagon was uncoupled in Belgrade, the next one in Bucharest. We didn't know where we were going. Hungary? So what? In Budapest, they uncoupled some wagons. I don't know how many, and we were on those wagons. We lived in so many places within Hungary. I couldn't list them. But I'll tell you about one event, one place. I recently talked here with my grandchild about what they'd learned in history lessons, about the events of 1956. My sweetie, what can I say? I'm going to tell you one thing about the 1956 revolution. I was 10.5 years old in 1956. We lived in Odst, and there were 10 Greek families. About 40 people. The revolutionaries surrounded us because they said that all Greeks were communists and they wanted to throw us in the blast furnace. We stood there in captivity for 2 or 3 days, waiting for when they would take us to the white-hot furnace. Fortunately, they changed their minds. Grandpa, I hate 1956. It was at such a risk whether I was born or not. That's what my grandchild said. It wanted to drink and fell into the water. Luckily, this thick reed is here and I was able to grab it. I'll take it out from there. Come here, buddy. Come, don't be afraid. Don't worry. Okay, good. 3 hedgehog families live here. When my mother came back, I didn't recognize her. I said, "You are not my mother. Go away. My mother is a partisan. She's fighting there in the mountains." Throughout the journey on the train, my mother sat opposite me. "You're not my mother. Get out of here," I said again and again. It must have been awful for my mother. At the border, when she left me and went back to fight, something might have broken in me in relation to my mother. Then one day, here in Hungary, she came into the dormitory room, carrying a lot of clothes. She was in charge of the room and handed out a dress to everyone. She had none left. I started to cry. I shouted, "Why didn't you keep just one piece for yourself? You gave clothes to everybody, but you didn't keep any clothes for yourself. You always wear this one dress." I crawled under the bed and cried there. In fact, there at the Greek-Bulgarian border, the notion of love disappeared from me. It's gone. Love is not conceivable. Because in the name of love, very nasty things can also be done. But there, crying under the iron bed, my sensitivity to all people developed. If you are sensitive to people, it is more than love. This is how the reconnection between my mother and me happened. From that time, I called her mother. I felt that she was a good person. She worked for our community. I had these kinds of feelings. I had no luck with school. Well, schools. Both my father and my mother worked in an orphanage where Greek children were raised, in Deg, in the former castle of Earl Festetics. There were children from grade 5 to 8. I was only 6 years old at that time. That's why I went to school in the village among Hungarian children. I didn't know a word of Hungarian. By the time I learned Hungarian, my dad and mom thought that it would be good if this kid learned Greek grammar as well. We were living in Budapest then. They sent me to the Greek school. My Greek grammar teacher flunked me. How could I have known the stuff of the first 3 years in the 4th grade? He flunked me. But believe me, it didn't hurt me. To this day, I still don't know what it means to be Greek or Hungarian. After we came here, until the age of 35, I had an ID card called a residence permit. In the citizenship box was written stateless. That was the best for me, stateless. What is a Hungarian, Greek, Russian, or whatever citizen? When someone classifies themselves in this way, they restrict themselves. The fact that society made Hungary out of this area, Austria out of that area, is such a meaningless thing to me. Okay, I know that a lot of people disagree with me. You were born here, here you must live and die. Okay, well, they can teach this at school. I was never receptive to such things. 1961. Hungarians could not travel abroad much. But I had already visited many countries by the time I was 15 years old. We spread Hungarian culture with folk dance. Only folk dancers and athletes travelled in those times. By the age of 20, I was the solo dancer. I could have danced for at least another 20 years. But I said that I was not interested in travelling or dancing anymore. I was disgusted and I felt sick of seeing that big wealth in the West. Around me, all the dancers, the musicians, and everyone said, "Wow, what a life!" I was sick of it. I liked what was here in this country. I was very satisfied with it.
On the 3rd of April 1969, he married Marta Eva Niemand, in the presence of only 2 witnesses. Their 2 children were born, Diana and Victor.
Actually, it was at the time when I married my Marty that I settled down. I calmed down. Everything was fine around me. I had a wife, an apartment, etc., etc. But I couldn't find my place in the world. In 1985, an idea came up to me. I said, "Marta, we have an opportunity to open a shop. What kind of shop should it be? How much money do we have?" She counted it. "Well, I can build a small shop from this." And we opened a perfumery and herbal shop in 1985. This is how my career as a trader began. But this trading career was not so bright. It had big pitfalls as well. Probably it was not a coincidence that my duodenal ulcer developed. We already had 3 shops. One evening, when I went home, I felt like I had diarrhea, or griping pains. I sat down on the toilet. Then came the blackout. I fainted 3 or 4 times until the ambulance arrived. I threw up blood. The ambulance took me to the hospital. With the sirens switched on, it seemed to be very dangerous. I don't know. I would have been the first person to be operated on the following Monday. The senior physician explained what they were going to do. 2/3 of my stomach would be removed. The ward round was on Friday. The principal also attended. The senior physician said to the principal, "This man wants to leave, wants to go home." Then they said, "Man, you might die at any moment." I said that I still wanted to leave. I didn't know why. "I'll be back," I said, "but now I must go." "Okay, you can go at your own risk." Later, I was sitting in my shop when a man and a woman entered. The woman was the interpreter. Sergei said that he had come to heal me. Another charlatan, I thought. I said, "Okay, try it. I've got nothing to lose." We went into the storage room, just for a short time. I don't know how long it took, 10 minutes, half an hour? Not more than half an hour. He said we were ready. I asked what it meant that we are ready. "Now you do not have any ulcer." "Don't I have an ulcer?" "Well, okay." The husband of one of the saleswomen was a colonel, a soldier. I asked her whether he could arrange an appointment for me in the military hospital for an examination. And it was a miracle. They didn't find the ulcer. So, do you believe such a person or not? I went to Sergei and buttoned my lips, even though I used to be a big talker. "Sergei, please speak." And he talked and talked. He told me what kind of exercise I should do. "Do yoga, Tai Chi," he said. He taught exercises like opening my third eye or leaving my body. He had never succeeded in these exercises before. He had practiced opening his third eye unsuccessfully for 15 years. These were all inside me somehow. He told me to try to leave my body. I succeeded right away. I was already in the sky. And believe me, it's not only within me, it's in my grandchild. She also does these things. It was probably within you as well. But materialism or religion or whatever suppressed it in you.
The books moved into the house only later to show anyone how Mihalis had strayed.
Actually, I brought the books here so that I could write this here. My strayings. I was searching like crazy for something. Look at here and here. These are all esoteric, religious, and these kinds of books. Here's this little angel. Maybe in this I could find what I've been looking for. I was searching like a madman. Or that yin-yang symbol. Oh, what is the message of the transition of black and white? I searched a lot. I researched Lenin, God, Jesus, or it may be here. I was born under this icon. I searched like a madman. But I found myself when I left everybody without thinking. Not because I didn't like people. Not because I had enough, but because I was seeking myself. And I came here. And that is why I wrote in my book, somewhere towards the end, if you understand the message of this book, you will throw this book into the fire, because you won't need it anymore. What I am saying is not necessary either. Don't think it is necessary. I'm just trying to give you a lead so that you can fight your own fight. I say don't even try to follow me, because if you follow me, you give up yourself. And what do I always say? Be the light of yourselves.
Legyetek önmagatok fénye.
In the past 18 years, no one has asked, what does that mean? Who said that sentence? Why did I put this sentence up here? The priest passes by here once a week for sure. Even he has not asked. I have definite memories and experience that I was already looking for something when I was only 2 years old. When we came to Hungary in 1950, what was here? Here, the official ideology was Marxism and materialism. I was taught this not only by the state and society, but also by my parents. I received a Marxist materialist education. By the time I was 30 years old, I already had everything. A beautiful wife, beautiful healthy children, an apartment, a summer house, a car, a good job. But somehow I couldn't find my way. I couldn't find my peace. I thought, okay, I have no problem with materialism. But maybe my place is on the other side. I bought a Bible. I have 2 copies here. I put it back. I didn't like it. I took the Quran and read it. I didn't like it either. There is Sufism within the Quran. I really liked that. I liked Sufis a lot. Then the Jewish Bible, the Torah. Nope. I went on. Hinduism, Buddhism.
Mihalis Patsioras always emphatically distinguishes between the divine Buddha exalted by Buddhism and Siddhartha Gautama, the real man.
If we want to put it briefly, in one sentence, Hinduism and Buddhism say that nothing is real. Actually, our senses are playing with us. Everything is a delusion, says Hinduism. According to Buddhism, everything exists through our consciousness. But how? How can my body be a delusion? If I squeeze it, it hurts. I didn't like this whole idea. There is a quotation by Lenin on the side of materialism that actually didn't let me go all the way over to the side of idealism. I still like that quotation, but even then I did not return, because I started from there and I didn't feel good there. That quotation was good for pulling me back from one side to the middle. Material is a philosophical category. It is an objective reality that exists regardless of our consciousness or senses. Lenin adds, can the conflict between Democritus and Plato come to an end? Can more than 2,000 years of struggle between materialism and idealism come to an end? Well, I thought Lenin was right. As long as there are 2 people, as long as there are Democritus and Plato, there will always be a debate. You're right, Lenin, but even then I'm not going back. But what is here? What is in the middle? Well, I was researching for a very long time. What could I rely on? And then I read 2 sentences of Siddhartha Gautama. 2 sentences. Gautama says, I left the chaos. I left the animal womb. It seemed he talked about Lenin, materialism. Obviously, Gautama did not speak of materialism. He just talked about things the way he saw them. I left hell. I left the animal womb. I left the world of ideas. He left the spiritual world, God, everything, because he too had been straying. Then, the fourth step, I left straying, the crooked way of evilness, destruction, and I purposefully strive for total awakening. The second sentence, when and where my body rests finally, I'm leaving for the sphere without rough beings or tender beings. Gautama did not classify. He did not split the world to categories. He described things the way he lived and experienced them. According to Gautama, suffering means this: everything, in me, anywhere in nature, in the cosmos, in every moment, always, everything changes. There are constant changes. By suffering, Gautama didn't mean, I would like to eat bean soup so much and there is no food here. This is not suffering. Suffering means that you do not have power, even over yourself. You cannot tell your body to be like this or your consciousness to be like that. This is what suffering means. On earth, how many gods, prophets, grand masters, books have appeared to improve man and mankind, and for the benefit of mankind? Have people changed? For example, is there any difference between a man before Jesus and a man in the 21st century? Is the 21st century better than that age? Have people developed emotionally? No, it is all the same. Why? Why don't we see any change? I say again, there were and there are so many gods and grandmasters and books. The world is full of books. Has mankind changed just a bit? There's no difference between people 5,000 years ago and people today. They live in the same way. Okay, technology is different, but that's not what I'm talking about. People themselves have not changed. And why? Why haven't they changed? That's the point. If grandmasters and books do not make the changes, there still should be a solution. These gods, prophets, masters, and books all say that you should change. You should become better. Everybody says this. There was the error in God, Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, Muhammad, and in all of them. They tell you to change. I say throw away all of these, all religions, all books. Sit down and start towards your inner self. Work on improving yourself. I can't tell you what's good and what's bad for you. These are just fairy tales. I leave it to the grandmasters and the books to tell you what is good and what is bad for you. Just think of it. I don't know how many billions of people live on Earth. 7, 8, 9? Imagine if everyone sat down and headed inwards and worked on their own improvement. Would they need any books? Would they need God or anything? Work on your own improvement. Before I reached attainment, I also knew exactly what needed to be done for world peace to come. Since my attainment, I don't know what social justice is. I don't know. I see society as a given thing. That's it. I don't care about it.
In 1999, while his family was waiting at the set table to celebrate their 30th wedding anniversary, Mihalis left everything behind and moved to Kamensa. He made the crucial step towards his attainment.
99.
The 3rd of April, 1999. It was the 30th anniversary of our wedding. It was a Saturday. At 1 o'clock, we closed the shops. We had planned to celebrate. In the shop where I sat at that time, I said to the saleswoman, "Here are the keys. Here is the money. I'm leaving everything here for you. You run the shop from now on. Visit me once a month. Bring the seeds for me that I usually eat. You pay my social insurance taxes for the minimum wage, because I have to get to retirement somehow. I'm gone. The shop is yours. I'm gone. This is your task." If I consider or think of the shame and pain that I caused my wife and children, it was terrible. That shame and pain was due to me. What they felt then should have belonged to me. If only I could take it over. This has been a big pain for me to this day. It would have been good to take it with me, so that they wouldn't have had to feel it. This one thing is really painful for me. But if I had thought about that then, I might not have been able to leave. I really loved my wife. All the good and beautiful things that a man can receive from a woman, I got from her. That was not the problem. I was not able to stay. I felt that I had to leave right away. I didn't have anything with me. I just left. I got on the train and came to Kemence. I was cold continuously for 2 months. Often I couldn't sleep from the cold. But to turn back, it never occurred to me for a single moment. Never. I decided not to leave Kemence until I reached attainment. But I would reach attainment for sure. It may happen in my last moment. I may reach attainment just before my death, but I will do it. I started working, renovating the house. And that was my luck, because it would have been much harder for me if it had been ready when I came. If I had renovated the house before and arrived into the finished one, I would have gone crazy for sure. Of course, the moment came when the house was ready. It was in the winter. An empty house. There were no pictures, no telephone, no television. I hadn't brought anything with me, not even a book. When someone encounters such a big silence so suddenly, he can simply go crazy. I was trying to find some fun for myself. So I looked out of the window, and I could see that the rooster in the neighbour's yard had mounted a hen. Even this was great fun. It was a big event when Aunt Bergie passed in front of my house. Something had finally happened. I waited for Auntie Bergie to come back. It was crazy. I didn't really think about this before. But I knew I would endure everything. Whatever may happen, I would not give up. For a year and a half, I felt like nothing was happening. In my torment, I went out to the woods so that nobody heard, that I was yelling. I tried to cry, but the tears did not come. My mouth was dry, even though I wanted to cry to find relief. I roared like a jackal. What the hell am I looking for here? It cannot be true that the way that I am doing it is the right way. Something must be wrong with it. In the autumn, I looked for a place there in the Bozsérny Hills for myself, a hidden place. In the spring, I was planning to pack up biscuits, nuts and food that wouldn't spoil for 2 months.
kekszet, diót, hát ilyen száraz, ami nem romlik.
There was a spring half an hour's walk from that place, so I had water too. And I planned to go out there in April next year. I was already trained for the cold in April. But luckily, or I don't know what I should call this, I didn't have to try this because I reached attainment on the 4th of March in 2001.
március 4-én célba értem. Amikor ide kerültem Kemencére,
when I arrived here to Kemence and looked up at the starry sky is very beautiful here because there are no city lights. I felt that this infinite cosmos was narrow, depressing. It squeezed me. Somehow I couldn't fit within this infinity. Then I understood that I had to cross the threshold of the cosmos.
Mihalis had a spinal cord problem, which he successfully healed by hanging upside down for half an hour a day for 1 year. He meditated a lot and did Tai Chi exercises.
mikor utoljára leültem,
the last time I sat down to meditate, of course, nobody knows that he is sitting down for the last time, and from that time he will be attained. Imagine if I had a phone then, and it had rung. I may have never known that I was only 5 minutes from attainment. Everything has to be eliminated when one starts on a way like this. Everything. So I sat down. I cut everything off. The sensual world disappeared. Next step. I direct my consciousness to misconception. Misconception is what one accumulates through one's life. If you live in a society, you need certain knowledge. For example, how would we have met here if we had not arranged the time of the meeting? So you need this kind of knowledge. Yes, you have to go to school. You have to learn this and that. But this knowledge does not lead to immortality. Therefore, I focused on the elimination of my misconception. And when I said that, a face appeared in front of me. I will destroy you. If I wanted to focus on the elimination of my misconception, then that should be my misconception. The picture began to sharpen. I suddenly saw myself. So who did I want to destroy? It jerked me until now. I destroyed it. Whoosh! It was gone. And what came then? Such energy flows started in me. I thought this was unbearable. I wouldn't endure it. This material world couldn't bear this energy. Like a spray, my body would sprinkle away. Well, I'm going to die. Okay, let me die. Is there a more beautiful death than this? I knew it was already the attainment. Is there any more beautiful death than dying at the moment of reaching attainment? Then another, an even greater energy started up, and I saw immortality. I saw the world to which I'll go when this body finally rests. I have had no questions to the world since then. Achieve this, that you do not have any questions for the world. Do you know what a good thing it is? You don't expect an answer to anything, because you've already solved everything, and this cannot be learned from books. Go inside. The bhikkhu, beggar in Sanskrit. This is me. What is a bhikkhu like? Modest, satisfied, relieved, persistent, proactive. This is the bhikkhu. Therefore, I cannot get tired. I always have to speak.